Well, hey, howdy, hi. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by to join me today. I really do appreciate it. My name is Ellie, and I'm a witch, and this over here is my teaching assistant, Andy, and I am back. Um, as one can tell, I did say that I wasn't going to take another hiatus, and then I had shoulder surgery. So I'm back now. Um, and instead of doing my usual series for my my lovely return, this is gonna be super fun. I'm doing a 4th of July series, and then this weekend or start of next week, I guess, I will post my normal content, my Sunday, Monday, Tuesday content. But no, so for the 4th of July, I meant to come back last weekend. Things didn't work out quite right, but I'm back now. So we're gonna do the 4th of July series. I wanted to talk about the founding fathers, obviously. But yeah, so just want to let you know that I'm back, and that this is gonna be fun. And I don't need this. I'm just doing it for the dramatics. But yeah, so I did a little hiatus because I had shoulder surgery, so I'm good now. I'm totally good, totally good now. But I own this now, so I couldn't like pass up the opportunity to not use it. And that's just gonna go in the closet now because I don't know what else to do with it. I needed it for the dramatics, and let's talk about the founding fathers. Okay, so for July 1st, obviously I have to talk about the first president of the United States, the wonderful founding father George Washington. Now, I do want to preface this by saying that no part of any of these videos is intended as a way to discredit any of the founding fathers. They've accomplished a lot. George Washington, in specific, accomplished a lot in his lifetime and during the term of his presidency specifically. There is a lot that I do respect about this man in particular, as well as the other founding fathers, and there is a lot of good that he did end up doing. One of the most impressive Americans, in my personal opinion, and I will go over the good that he did in another video. I want to make a very separate video to this. These videos, or this series, is specifically the negatives that I could find because I thought it was funny. But no one is without fault, which is kind of why I wanted to make these videos. And Washington himself was open to critique and criticism. He welcomed it. So, in that spirit, let's talk about the dark side of America's first president. So, while I'll attempt to ease into the truly messed up things that I could find, let's start with a myth that has persisted about George Washington. So, the most common thing that we know about George Washington is that he could not tell a lie. Now, the story claims that Washington chopped down one of his father's cherry trees, and upon his father discovering the fallen tree, Washington had said, quote, "I cannot tell a lie, I did cut it with my hatchet," end quote. Now, his father told him that his honesty was more important than 1,000 trees. This sounds like a good story, and a father teaching his child the importance of being honest, and this instilled in the American people a trust of the first president. However, the story is likely false. So after Washington's death in 1799, the public wanted more information on the life of the first president, and bookseller Mason Locke Weems was happy to provide that. He published the book, The Life of Washington, but the cherry tree story wasn't actually added until several editions later, which has led many to believe the story to be made up. So now, let's talk about some of the worst things that I was able to find. So starting with his teeth, in school, I personally was taught that he had wooden teeth, which was what most people were told. Later on, I had heard that it was a combination of wood and hippopotamus teeth. The truth is far darker. However, his dentures were made from human teeth, specifically the teeth of slaves. Now, some people started to justify this as okay because Washington did pay the slaves for their teeth. However, this doesn't make it any less awful in my mind, as the slaves, they had little to no choice. To be fair, not all the teeth were human though, some were crafted from animal bone. Slaves is another issue that most schools don't cover in regards to Washington. Now, he had a very long history with slavery, though his views were not entirely clear on the matter. He was an abolitionist in theory, but not in practice. So at age 11 or 12, Washington inherited 10 slaves from his father after he passed, and as he grew up, he continued to sell and buy slaves. When he then married his wife Martha, she brought 84 slaves with her to their estate in Mount Vernon. Now, As I said earlier, his views on slavery were not entirely clear, because he was very private about his political views, but some people assumed the best from him because he freed his slaves through his will. Unfortunately, it is not that straightforward. Washington put in his will that the slaves would be freed after Martha died. Now, Martha did end up freeing his slaves a year after Washington's death, though purely out of fear that the slaves would kill her in order to be freed quicker. There is another caveat to freedom, however. Washington only freed his slaves. The slaves that Martha had brought with her upon their marriage were still bound to Martha legally, and they were actually divided among her grandchildren when she died. So a fact I didn't know pre-research that made me honestly so shocked that all I could do was laugh. So Washington helped start the first ever World War. Now he was only 22 at the time, so it was well before his presidency, but while Britain and France fought for territory at the edge of North American colonies, Washington, who at the time was a Virginia militia officer, was sent with around 150 troops to the Ohio Valley, which is now western Pennsylvania, and he was sent to repel any French attacks. On their way, Chief Half King, an ally, warned Washington that there was a small camp of French forces a few miles from where they currently were. Now, Washington took about 40 soldiers and around a dozen Native American warriors to find the French. So the whole ordeal lasted about 15 minutes, and there is still dispute regarding who fired the first shot. Regardless of who shot first, 10 Frenchmen and 1 Virginian were killed. One of the Frenchmen being a minor French noble named Joseph Clone de Villiers, who was on a diplomatic mission for France. When news reached France, they ended up calling Washington an assassin. Now, this incident helped to escalate tensions between France and Britain and helped lead to both the French and Indian War and the 7 Years' War, which was the First World War. So the last thing I don't want to talk about is something that has had people up in arms since it happened. So let's talk about the US screwing over vets for the literal first time. So during the Revolutionary War, there was a lack of men and money, so those who fought had to pay out of their own pocket. They believed in what they were fighting for, and so it made sense for them to do so, under the promise that they would be paid back at the end of the war. Come the end of the war, they didn't get paid back, and there was a lot of uproar over that fact. There was talk of a mutiny and some plans. Now, Jefferson held the position that they should get no pay. Who cared if they ended up in debtor's prison after having helped form a nation? Washington, on the other hand, who fought alongside the soldiers, clearly knew it was unfair. Now, this sparked the Newburgh Address. Now, before he started reading what he had written, he took a pair of reading glasses out of his pocket and he said, quote, "Gentlemen, you will permit me to put on my spectacles, for I have not only grown gray, but almost blind in the service of my country." End quote. Now, this made a lot of soldiers teary-eyed as they served with him and realized in this moment that he too had given up as much as they had for the service of the country. In the letter, he essentially told everyone to trust the government to make it right, and that the mutiny is not the appropriate way to handle their anger. The conspiracy ended with that letter, which is a lovely thing to see people come together and come to a mutual understanding even when things were heated. But I couldn't possibly end this video with some kind of sentiment. When researching, I read so many comments about how this screamed manipulation, and while I understand why people could reach that conclusion, I do disagree. I will say that I like Washington and I have a lot of respect for him, and for this letter and the glasses bit, I feel that it was genuine. He was someone who cared for the country and his fellow soldiers. He gave up just as much as all of them. He paid for the war as they did, and he took no salary for his time as a military leader. So that part feels genuine to me. However, he is a liar. Congress issued essentially IOUs to the vets, but they were worthless, and it took years before they would be worth anything at all, and even then it wasn't much and certainly not equal to what the soldiers spent and gave up. It wasn't as though they were demanding higher wages, they were asking for back pay that they were rightfully owed and that they were promised, and they essentially got nothing. If you were to try this today, not only would it become a riot, but the amount of upset people would increase monumentally. Whether you agree with war or a specific war, the point was that these people who put their lives on the line for their country and their beliefs were told to kick rocks. Now, I do admire that Washington was able to get the response that he did. He was 6'2", when the average height of the time was around 5'5" or 5'6" for men, and he was a rather intimidating man. He knew that people were angry, and knew that he could use force or violence to end the discussion, but he chose not to, showing them that violence is not the only answer. But again, those poor veterans really just set the tone for how the government treats vets. So that's all I have to say about George Washington. Like I said, I have a lot of respect for him. I have a lot of respect for pretty much all of our founding fathers, and this series is not meant to discredit them because they did a lot, and it was not easy to create a nation, and they fought hard. They actually did to create something. But that doesn't mean we can't acknowledge their faults. There's nothing wrong with saying that somebody messed up, and presidents like Washington were okay being criticized. He wanted the conversation. And so that gives me a level of respect for him, but this is just the negative sides. Probably do his own video, and then next year I will do the good things that the founding fathers accomplished. I think if that would be interesting. But yeah, so that is all that I have to say about George Washington. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If I missed anything cool, please let me know because I like facts about historical figures or history in general. So yeah, if I missed anything, please let me know. If you have anything to add to any of what I said, I didn't go into too much detail. But yeah, if you liked the video, hit that thumbs up and maybe subscribe if you want to see more of us. But I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.